There was a recent interview with AOC where she actually admits that she's changed. I can't make this up. Let me bring it up, and then I'm going to tell you about this new book that apparently is going to be released pretty soon from Ryan Grimm. We're going to connect the dots tonight. Now, the New York Times shared this interview with AOC. It says AOC on how she's changed. The Congresswoman from New York says she's different from when she first took office, but she's not ready to call herself an insider. Okay. The buffoonery of it all. Let's get into the interview. We can skip all that hoopla. Here we go. For a lot of people, 33 is a time when they are already established in a career and making plans about the future. You use these words, evolving, but rooted, and it kind of captures that tension. So I want to explore that with you. You are in your third term now. Your job's not new. And I want to highlight this part, your job's not new. Because I like to remind people of, again, she's been there years now. So we can no longer use the excuse, she just got there. We can't use that anymore. A lot has changed since you were first elected in 2018. What is the thing that has changed the most about you since you first took office? Listen to this, guys. I think I have a steadiness and confidence in what I'm doing. My election was characterized by so much upheaval, both nationally and personally. We were in a time of great political upheaval when President Trump was elected. The Democratic Party at that time was kind of lost in many ways. We were in transition between an older party and a newer one in terms of where we were coming from ideologically. All right. She says this like this is a good thing. It's not. I want to debunk something really quick here. That's actually not a good thing. The Democratic Party, the older Democratic Party, actually cared more about the working class. I mean, hell, even Bill Clinton, don't get me wrong, they still were there for their donors. But even Bill Clinton raised the minimum wage, okay? But if you go back even further before that, before Clinton came in, because Clinton was the one that kind of changed things and made the party shift, in a sense, more closer towards being the Republican Party. If you go further back, you talk about the New Deal, you talk about all those things, like the older Democratic Party was actually better at doing things for the working class. Not the newer one. Let's go on. Then also myself, I was waitressing up until, I don't know, March. She wasn't just waitressing, you guys. She's still playing this up, right? She's still playing up waitressing, right? AOC owned a fucking startup. You never hear her mention that. She's still going with this story. And that's not to say she didn't do both. But it's interesting. She always mentions that part, but she don't mention the other part where she made a lot more money. Still going with that image. And I won my primary just a few months later. And even coming into Washington, not just figuring out how I orient myself politically, coming from a background of direct action and activism, but then also adding on the entire profession of legislating at a federal level. First of all, this part right here is a lie. Coming from a background of direct action and activism. By the way, guys, she admitted this in another interview. She may not remember. AOC was not an activist. She actually admitted in an interview after she had just won, when they said to her, like, yeah, you're this activist, and what made you want to speak up? And she said, I actually never considered myself to be an activist. They just called me one. She wasn't about no direct action and activism and all that stuff. Like, that was, again, something that was added to be a part of her story to make her appeal to be more part of that justice Democrat theory and brand. That's another part of the lie. Let's continue. And then also the class dynamics, the gender dynamics that come from being a poor working class person going into an environment of extraordinary privilege. That's also a lie. There were years of learning ahead of me. She was not poor. She's still telling this lie. Guys, we've debunked this so many times on the show. AOC, look, she talks about I'm from the Bronx and da-da-da. She grew up. You can start somewhere and then move, right? So yes, she was in the Bronx at one point, but AOC grew up in a New York suburb. Pretty well-to-do suburb from what I saw. Great school system. She went to Boston University. I worked at BU. There's a lot of things that people just don't. So this thing of coming from being poor, she wasn't poor. Her dad, listen to this now. This is the part she leaves out. Her dad was the president of the company that he worked at. She adds into her story the part where she mentions that her mom cleaned houses. Yes. But she leaves out that her dad was the president of the architect firm that he worked with. She did not grow up poor. And I'll continue to debunk that. That's why I told you this woman is an actress. This is all a lie. Let's go on. When you say things have changed for you personally, she goes on to say, when I first came into office, I was unproven in a way that I think many other people may not be, right? There are a lot of people that are elected with a history of legislating. And I very much felt that I had to prove two things at the same time that were often at odds with one another. I had to prove to people that elected me that I'm committed and very well grounded in all the values and issues and fights. Haven't done that. Have not done that one. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. From taking on a party establishment that can be very calcified to continuing to fight for landmark progressive issues like Medicare for all. When was the last time AOC mentioned Medicare for all? When was the last time AOC even tweeted about it? Okay. And comprehensive changes to our immigration system or criminal justice system. And the second was that I had to prove to this world of Washington that I was serious and skilled and that I wasn't just here to make a headline, but that I was here to engage in this process in a skilled and sophisticated way. That I did my homework, so to speak. Yeah, you did your homework. All right, let's go on. You built your brand, see this brand, as this political outsider. But now you're the vice ranking member on the powerful House Oversight Committee, the number 2 spot for Democrats on that committee. So clearly you have proved at some point that you do mean business. Do you see yourself as more of an insider now? She responds and says, I don't think so. I mean, on a certain level, once you are engaged as a legislator, you are on the inside. That is a function of the role. And that grants myself or anyone else in a similar position the tools to be able to translate this outside energy into internal change. So here's the problem here. Outside energy into internal change. She doesn't bring any outside energy. She not with the people on the outside. When we had the marches for Medicare for all, she was out there campaigning with Nina Turner. She didn't even tweet about it. That's the thing. You ain't got to be there, but she didn't even tweet about it. She's not bringing that outside energy into Congress. That's the problem. Boy, I tell you, she's a good liar, though. I'm curious if you understood in 2018, when you were first elected, that holding power and having relationship was going to be vital to how you move the party. Listen to this. When I first came in, I came into an environment that I sensed was never going to give me a chance, and into a party that was extremely hostile to my presence, extremely hostile to my existence. Why do you want to be a part of this party? Like, that's the thing. Like, hey guys, would you crash a party, right? Let's say you crash someone's birthday party and everybody there is really hostile towards you. And it's obvious, like, then I really, you want to go, you want to stay in this party? That's one of the reasons I dug so powerfully into my work. No, I'll go ahead and correct this for you. They were extremely hostile to my existence. That's one of the reasons why I decided to side with Democrat leadership. That's one of the reasons why I decided to become a scab against the railroad workers. That's one of the reasons why I decided to vote for that $40 billion to go to Ukraine. That's one of the reasons why I continue to ignore the outside grassroots activists. That's one of the reasons why I don't go onto left independent media anymore. So much more we can add here. So much more. I think a lot of women and people of color, especially women of color, have heard time and time again, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. I felt like I had to work way, way harder to not even get half as far, you know? No, I don't know. Because let's make a comparison here. She's talking about women of color and having to work twice as hard. Who gets the most attention from the squad? Who gets the most interviews? Whose name is mentioned the most? Out of all the members of the squad, who gets the most attention? It's AOC. Out of all the members of the squad, who do you see on network media the most? It's AOC. So when you compare her to the other members of the squad, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, who, as far as I'm concerned, mainstream media acts like she's invisible. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, when you compare her to the other members of the squad, did she really have to fight and work as hard to get the attention? No, from day one, she was selected. From day one, she was selected. Think about how these races were covered. If you watch the documentary Knocking Down the House, it's mainly about AOC. Yes, there's Amy Vilela there. Cori Bush is also there, and Paula Jean Swearengin is there. But it's mainly about AOC because she was the one that won in that documentary. I don't see Ayanna Pressley in that documentary. Ilhan Omar's not in there. Rashida Tlaib's not in there. They all won with AOC. From day one, Justice Democrats decided that she was going to be the focus. So does she really have to work as hard as the other squad members? Let's continue. I knew that relationships and expertise, of course, were important, but I also felt that door was closed to me at that moment. And so the best thing that I could do is just work as hard as I possibly could to get to a point where I had earned the benefit of the doubt. And what that meant was she realized all she had to do was sell out. Doesn't necessarily mean you were working harder. It doesn't take hard work just to say, okay, I'm going to start agreeing with Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to start agreeing with Hakeem Jeffries. I'm going to tell everybody to endorse and support Joe Biden. That's not hard work. You just flip. One of my first hearings ever was questioning Michael Cohen. And I remember the commentary at that time was, she's just going to put on a show. And I knew that I was capable of more than that. I think anyone who is used to being underestimated can relate to that experience. Here comes the meat of it, guys. I want you to read two recent headlines from New York Magazine. They were written within a week of each other. The first is AOC is just a regular old Democrat now. And that accuses you of compromising on your progressive ideals as you work within the party system. And then came the rebuttal, which was the AOC left has achieved plenty, which argued that your wing has pushed the party leftward. Why do you think your role is still being parsed this way by Democrats and by those on the left? So let me explain something really quick right here, something I noticed, you guys. Remember, I talked about both of those articles, and I told you how this one was basically a response to that other article calling her out, right? This article here, the AOC left has achieved plenty. I constantly pointed out how they always referred to the squad and then AOC's name was separate. It's like Diana Ross and the Supremes, right? AOC has already been selected. She's basically in line to be the next Nancy Pelosi, unless she decides to leave politics. That's basically where she's in line to be. I can see it already now. Nancy Pelosi was progressive too. Remember when she joined Congress? But what I want to tell you is when it says AOC left has achieved plenty, and you see how this rebuttal, it came out quickly to rebut that article from Freddie. This just goes to show you one of the things that Dr. Shiva said that I think I do agree with is that sometimes the establishment will choose our heroes for us. So they choose someone like an AOC. They choose someone like a Bernie Sanders, someone that appears to be on the outside, but is just playing their role of convincing you that they're going to fight for these things internally, but they're not. And as long as they pick the hero for us, we won't see the real fighters. The real fighters would never get that attention. Now she responds. Part of it is because we haven't really had a political presence like this in the United States before. Really? Is she correct there? I think very often you had this consummate insider that was bankrolled by corporate money in advancing this, frankly, very neoliberal agenda. Does AOC realize there was a time in this country when we didn't have super PACs or PACs at all? When politicians weren't connected to corporate money? Does she not realize that? All right, let's go on. Boy, I tell you. And those were the people that were willing, that were used to seeing in power. And so I think over time, there's been an inherent association between power, assent, and quote, unquote, selling out. Sometimes she just talks and it's like she just throws words together that don't really make sense. And so I think over time, there has been this inherent association between power, assent, and quote, unquote, selling out. Jesus. I often say to my grassroots companions that the left for a very long time was not used to having power in the United States. Is anyone going to tell her about the New Deal? Is anyone going to tell her about the New Deal? Okay. How there were socialists, there were communists who rose up against FDR. And so when we encounter power, we're so bewildered by it. No. This is all an act. This is all an act. Her just making excuses so she don't have to do what she was supposed to do. Suspicious of it, they ask. Suspicious of it that there's no way in this country you can accrue any kind of power without there being some Faustian compromise. Let me show you guys how this works together. I'm not reading this entire article, but let me show you something. Because you see, you have people that clap for the squad as well. Ryan Grimm, look at this shit. Let me pull this up here. So Robert Durden posted this. I wonder if AOC will sign Grimm's personal copy. Dear Ryan, thanks for writing this book, worshiping me, and for never asking me any hard questions when we do interviews. I love that, Robert. Ryan Grimm is writing a book, or wrote a book. It hasn't been released yet. Guys, go ahead and get your laughs out now. Hasn't been released yet. It's called The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution by Ryan Grimm, author of We've Got the People. Now, how do you think this book is going to portray the squad? I'm pretty sure it's not going to portray them in a negative light, right? Ryan Grimm is the DC bureau chief for The Intercept. He has access to the squad members, where most people in this space do not, by the way. Now, in order to maintain that access with those squad members, obviously, you're going to have to talk about them in a way that makes them feel comfortable talking to you. And that's part of the reason why Ryan Grimm is always there to jump into the Twitter discussions to defend the squad when people criticize them. It's almost like he has that shit on standby. I'm not kidding. I told him this to his face. So, but do you see what's happening here? You guys see this? This is why Ryan Grimm has been defending AOC and the squad so much, because all this time he was writing a book. All this time. And this is just another way. Let me send this message out there to people to let them know the squad is still fighting for you. Give them a chance. Give them a chance. Colin said, no one bought Corey's book. What makes Ryan Grimm think that people will buy his book? No one has money to buy books anyway. It's just like, I can't. It just. Now, Ryan did respond. We'll go up here because Ryan did respond to the criticism. About the book. But it's obvious. People know what's up, right? So Ryan says, I have a new book coming out in December. The story of Bernie and the squad. Hold on. I have a story coming out, book coming out this December. The story of Bernie and the squad's rise and the way they shaped and were shaped by Washington. Pre-order Ryan Grimm's new book, The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution.
Actually a sequel to my last one, and you can pre-order it now on all.
Hold on. Hold on.
I have a new book coming out this December. This one published by Henry Holt, called The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution. It traces the evolution of the left in the United States from 2015, starting with Bernie's first campaign, through the 2022 midterms. It's essentially a sequel to my last one, and you can pre-order it now on all the book platforms, including independent ones. Pre-orders are hugely influential to how a book does on launch. So if you like the last book, please consider pre-ordering. I have a new book coming out.
Well, hit that like button, guys. If you haven't had a chance to do so, just hit that like button. That helps me out with the algo. But do you guys see, you see what's happening here, right? So obviously, again, in order for these politicians to continue to grow their brand, right, there has to be someone in media that is going to defend them, that is going to simp for them and back them up. And that's Ryan Grimm. Used to be TYT, but TYT stopped defending them. So Ryan Grimm is there to do that. That's his job. To prevent any real outside movement, to keep you just in the Democratic Party. Here he goes. It's here. He shows the Amazon thing. So there's the Amazon link there. So it's just, I thought he posted another one. Oh, let me go here. Sorry. There was another one that he posted because people were mad at him about the book. Maybe he removed it. I don't see it now. Oh, there it is. Here we go. The quotes and replies are perfect. Bunch of people mad at a book cover for a book that isn't out for another 3 months. Would be a real shame if they loudly complained about it from now until then and continued sharing the cover. Ryan don't like to take any criticism. But you see how this is? You see the connections, guys? Between the book coming out from Ryan Grimm, the AOC saying, admitting that she has changed. So she can't blame us anymore. She's admitting this herself. And then the articles that came about AOC and all this kind of stuff. This is just, if there's anyone there to protect the squad, it is Ryan Grimm. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. Let me go to some of the comments here and we'll go to our next story. Marvin says we can shelter in 15-minute cities. Globalist dream. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you, Roger. We need Senate sponsor for National Infrastructure Bank. Thank you. Thank you, Warren. AOC equals Alexandria Ocasio-Crowley. Oh, damn. Alexandria Ocasio-Crowley. Yikes. Thank you, John says, keep up the good work, vote green. Thank you, John Solo. Thank you, Mary. She was Senator Ted Kennedy's intern. She's a liar. Exactly. Thank you, Anthony. Blocked by Grimm Job, aka Progressive Caucus Whisperer. Thank you, Mary. Ryan, paint them as the defenders Ryan, paint them as the defenders of justice. Here you go. Thank you, David. Everyone's got a book. Grimm, RFK, Marianne. Thank you, Frank. They don't know how to handle power. Nah, they just don't want to use it to help us. They had all the power during Obama's first term and did nothing. You're right. Multiple times when they had power in this country. Multiple times.